It's time for America Outdoors Radio, the show that covers the outdoor scene across the U.S. of A. and the entire continent. Fishing, hunting, conservation, outdoor recreation, and great destinations. We cover it all every week. It's your country, your outdoors. Let's explore it together with your host, John Kruse.
Welcome aboard. We've got a fun show for you today featuring some high-caliber guests talking about fishing, paddling, and conservation in the hour ahead. On the paddling front, we're going to talk to David Parris with Sportsman's Warehouse in just a minute and get a handle on just how popular fishing and hunting from kayaks and canoes is becoming these days and why. After that, we're heading to the Show Me State of Missouri. That's where we'll catch up with outdoors writer and podcast host Brandon Butler, who appears to be doing more than fine during this COVID-19 pandemic, publishing all sorts of photos on Facebook from his spring cast and blast camp. Brandon will tell you about some of the fantastic fishing opportunities available in Missouri right now, and there are a bunch of them this month. After that, it's time to talk bass with Kent Brown, the host of Ultimate Bass Radio. We'll be asking Kent about his picks for the top 5 bass lakes west of the Mississippi River, and I'm willing to wager you are going to be very surprised by some of his choices. If you're looking to hit the road this summer or in the early fall when travel hopefully opens up again, he's got some destinations you'll definitely want to trailer your boat to for a chance at some trophy bass and maybe, just maybe, the DIY bass fishing trip of a lifetime. Last but not least, we're going to share some very good news from the borderlands of Wyoming and South Dakota, where 10 miles of property and a whole bunch of public access is opening up for hunters and hikers in an area called the Grand Canyon of the Black Hills. Jennifer Doherty with the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation will join us to tell you more about this area being protected for elk and other wildlife and about some other work they're doing in the Midwest. Next on America Outdoors Radio, if you've been into a Sportsman's Warehouse store as of late, you're probably familiar with the fishing section, the hunting section. They got great outdoors clothing section, boots as well, but you might have missed the boating section. That's right, they've got all sorts of canoes and kayaks on sale at Sportsman's Warehouse. With us here to tell you a little bit more about this growing segment of sales is David Parris. He's the marketing editor for Sportsman's Warehouse. David, it's great to have you on the air.
Hey, great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about canoe and kayak sales at Sportsman's Warehouse stores? I keep seeing more and more boats. That tells me there's probably more and more sales.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing an increase over the last few years. That's due to increased customer demand, and we've placed a greater emphasis on paddle sports as a whole, especially in that fishing kayak segment. And recreational kayaking, of course, is becoming a very popular family activity. Basically, you don't have that investment or upkeep that you do with a motorized boat. Far easier to transport and store, and there's really not much of a learning curve for that new hobby.
You're absolutely right. I've canoed, since I was a teenager. Recently took up kayak fishing, and you're absolutely right. There's no learning curve at all. Anybody can do it, and it's a ton of fun. Like you said, the transport issue is a big deal. The maintenance issue is wonderful because there really isn't any, and it's really an accessible opportunity to get on the water. Question for you. Are there some stores or some areas where you have stores that see stronger sales than others?
We do. Well, I mean, obviously being a national retailer, we've got stores that go all the way from, Fairbanks, Alaska, all the way out to the Atlantic coast. So we do see stores in certain parts of the country, obviously those, with more bodies of water that sell boats better than others. And it's really weather dependent, obviously, as well. If you get a dry season, then you're going to sell fewer boats. There's just not, as much opportunity. And if you have a real wet season, then you're going to be selling more boats. As you were talking earlier, the fishing kayak craze for the sit-on tops started in the southeast, and it's just taken off from there. We really don't have any markets that haven't bought into it to some degree.
One thing I love about kayaks and canoes is the price point. You can go as basic as you want or as fancy as you want, and you meet that need too at Sportsman's Warehouse stores. Just browsing through sportsmans.com, going into the boating section, I was finding kayaks, sit-on tops, under $300 in some cases, all the way up to $1,800 for a fully rigged fishing kayak. Same thing with the canoes. You can get them real cheap or you can get them real expensive. And strangely enough, some of the more expensive canoes are really lightweight solo models like the Old Town Next series.
As far as canoes go, we have been seeing a decline on that over the last 10 years. We continue, of course, to stock all those multiple styles and colors that you're seeing there. But where this is a very market-driven category, more so actually than kayaks, our average retail price for a canoe has come down. And those lower price point canoes are selling much better for us than something you would consider more high-end. One trend that we're really seeing that's intrigued us are the sportsman-oriented one-person styles, those small and light. They compete with kayaks, but they offer you that traditional canoe look and feel with the capability of hauling more gear, fishing gear, decoys, etc.
Right. And I guess there's something else to mention here. Before the fishing kayaks, you did have the recreational kayaks, but there was specialized waterfowl kayaks. Those have been around for quite some time. I'm now seeing canoes that are all camoed out as well. Are you seeing a pretty good buying push by hunters who are using canoes and kayaks?
Yeah, a lot of those angler-style boats that we sell are coming out in the more natural colors so that they're easier to cross over for, as you're saying, waterfowl hunters, anglers, etc. Most of our customers are looking for a one-size-fits-best, really. If you're going to make that kind of investment or start getting into it, you want the most possible applications. So we're definitely seeing more of that. And, of course, the sit-on-top angler kayaks, pedal kayaks are really taking off. And we're seeing more customers graduate. They get comfortable with a sit on top. They start graduating from that entry-level boat up to new hull designs, cockpit features, different colors, things they see on Instagram. So that's allowed us to have pedal-propelled kayaks. It's decreasing in price from, their initial launches. So it's a pretty exciting subcategory of sit on top.
It's funny you mentioned the pedal-driven kayaks. I remember when they first came out from brands like Hobie, you were looking at spending anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 for one of these. But again, looking on your website, I was seeing them for as low as $1,200, $1,300.
Yes, absolutely. We do think that trend is probably going to continue, and just kind of depends on, how many additional options you do want on there. But yeah, pedal kayaks are interesting, obviously, because they give you that hands-free option.
Right.
If you want to fish, if you're out hunting or anything along those lines, yeah. Our Lost Creek Angler 10, for example, is a great price point, really great quality, a lot of free extras kind of thrown in there on the whole package deal. So it's definitely something that we're seeing more and more of, and it's been a lot of growth and a lot of excitement from our customer base about them as well.
And I guess that's one last point we should make, folks. In addition to the Lost Creek brand, that is the Sportsman's Warehouse brand, they've got all the brands you'd expect. On the kayak side, they've got Perception, Old Town, Emotion, and more. On the canoe side, also Old Town, Mad River, and several other brands too. With 98 stores around, and actually, let me double check this. Are we at 98 or have we grown even further, David?
We're actually at 105 now that we've opened our latest location in Crescent Springs, Kentucky.
Oh my gosh. It just gets getting bigger and bigger and bigger. This is just amazing to me. I remember when Sportsman's Warehouse not too long ago was like down in, less than 30 stores.
That is correct, actually. When I came on with the company in 2014, we had 37 stores. So we've seen exponential growth. What's really given us a huge advantage is our improved website for online shopping at sportsman.com, which was already fully operational pre-pandemic. We have our buy online, pick up in stores, ship to home, and free ship-to-store options, which is huge for kayaks and canoes to avoid those oversized shipping fees. This also allowed us to offer a lot more inventory to our customers and be nimble in this current environment. As far as our store operations and the coronavirus situation that's been ongoing, we've also actually added curbside service for most online purchases at all of our locations, and the vast majority of them are still open, with the exception of a few that local governments have mandated otherwise.
So there's no excuse not to get a canoe or kayak. You can start online, and like David just said, you can order it and have it shipped to your store. You can pick it up curbside or just go in the store and wander around, take a look at everything they have to offer. This is a great time to be investing in your personal outdoor recreation with a kayak or a canoe, and the place to go is Sportsman's Warehouse. David, thanks for sharing this with us today on America Outdoors Radio.
Thanks, John. Have a great day.
We've been telling you about Sportsman's Cove Lodge in Southeast Alaska for a while now, and there's a reason. They are the only Alaska lodge we talk about on this show. It's because they're truly Alaska's best lodge. The adventure starts with a float plane ride from Ketchikan, after which you'll get the chance to experience some of the best hospitality, food, and wonderful people you'll ever meet. Wildlife is abundant, from bears and deer to eagles and whales, and let's not forget the reason you're here, the fishing. Halibut, salmon, lingcod, rockfish, true cod, and more. It's all waiting for you in abundance at Sportsman's Cove Lodge. Book your trip today at alaskasbestlodge.com. That's alaskasbestlodge.com for Sportsman's Cove Lodge.
Are you looking to reel in the marketing opportunity of a lifetime? Then set the hook, because we've got it right here for you. America Outdoors Radio has sponsorships available, and we offer affordable platforms to reach thousands of listeners interested in fishing, hunting, and the outdoors. Find out more by contacting John Kruse through his website at americaoutdoorsradio.com.
A sharp blade makes short work of any project you have in the outdoors, in the kitchen, or in the shop. Hone your knives and tools with quality power and manual sharpeners from WorkSharp. Find out more at worksharptools.com.
Kokanee indeed. That's what my family says every time they catch a delicious kokanee salmon, and we're reeling them in today. We're trolling spinners, crop dusters, or my personal favorite, mini squids, behind dodgers made by Christensen's Lakeshore Tackle. Tested at Flaming Gorge Reservoir, Lakeshore Tackle will catch kokanee wherever you're fishing. Look for Lakeshore Tackle at Sportsman's Warehouse, Cabela's, and Shields, or online at lakeshoretackle.com. Kokanee indeed at lakeshoretackle.com.
You're back in with America Outdoors Radio. It is May. It is prime time for bass fishing. And when I want to talk to somebody who knows all about the subject, I pick up the phone and I call Kent Brown. He is the host of Ultimate Bass Radio that airs every Saturday morning from 5 to 6 a.m. on KHTK, AM 1140 out of Sacramento, California. He covers the bass fishing scene across the nation like nobody else. Kent, great to have you back on the air again.
Well, that's a great introduction, and thanks for the kind words. And, yeah, we try to stay up with the guys as they travel the national tournament circuits, and then, obviously an emphasis on what we have going on right here in the West.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about the West, or at least west of the Mississippi. So we're going to basically be covering the Midwest and then heading to the West Coast in terms of premier bass fishing destinations at this time of year. Now, you and I know there's all sorts of ponds and little lakes that are great bass fisheries right now because a lot of bass are in the spawn mode, but there's some really big ones that tournament anglers congregate to as well. Let's start out towards the Mississippi River. What are a couple that come to mind and why?
Well, obviously, everyone wants to fish and they hear so much about the Texas lakes, whether it's Lake Fork. Even a few of the guys still venturing down and fishing Falcon and Amistad, although they've lost a little bit of the luster and a little bit of the everyone wanting to go fish those two lakes, and for a lot of reasons. But those are still lakes that everybody in that Texas region really wants to get out and fish. Oklahoma, here Major League Fishing just announced that they're going to hold their Red Crest on Grand Lake in Oklahoma, and I think as far as that neck of the woods, Grand Lake is it. I think that's somewhere where everybody would like to fish just because they've seen so many great tournaments and its history as well. I have a hard time with Table Rock and Bull Shoals and the big three up there around Springfield because, well, heck, I think I got better spotted bass fishing and largemouth fishing in California, so I wouldn't venture that far out.
Well, hold on, Kent. We've got people tuning in today from Springfield that are probably getting hopping mad just hearing you say that.
Well, that's just because they haven't fished out here, John. That's the biggest thing. But, yeah, no, absolutely, and they do. It is a great fishery. And they are phenomenal lakes. And Rick Emmett, my buddy at Bass Pro Shop, sends me photos all the time from Table Rock. And I think that's a part of the world that really anybody would like to go back and do some bass fishing. But you asked for the top 5 bass lakes when you sent me the message the other day.
I did.
Yeah, well, none of those are going to be in my top 5. Maybe other than Lake. I would probably have Lake Fork in my top 5, but I'd have to venture a little farther west and really talk about Lake Havasu. Of all the lakes on the Colorado River chain, yeah, and I'll tell you why. There are a few months out of the year that Havasu fishes like it doesn't have any fish in it. Okay, so that's kind of one of those deals where it's very seasonal, but when it's on big time. But let me tell you the cool part: trophy-sized smallmouth. I mean, big smallmouth in Lake Havasu, the Colorado River. All those lakes have really, really big smallies. Mojave, for example, is also a really great smallmouth lake. So I think that kind of gives it a little bit of an edge, because everybody likes the chance of catching, a 5-pound smallmouth, especially if you've never caught one.
Oh, yeah. That is definitely a trophy smallmouth no matter where you're at. And I had no idea that Lake Havasu was going to be in your top 5. Let's move into the state of California. That is your home state. I'm sure there's a couple top 5 lakes there, too.
Well, without a doubt. I mean, you just don't get past Clear Lake up in Northern California, right. Lake County. It is California's largest natural lake, solely inside the California border. It has got so much heritage, and so it is so deep in bass fishing history in the West for sure. But yeah, that place is number one. It really doesn't matter where you're talking. Clear Lake is probably, one of the top 3 bass fisheries in the country.
When it comes to California bass fishing, there's been some techniques pioneered in California that are now being used in other places around the nation. Why don't you explain to our listeners what a couple of those things are? I always think swim baits when I think California bass.
Oh, we're going to go way farther back than that. We're going to go way back to the 70s when a little technique was brought to us by a man named D. Thomas, and it was the flipping technique. And, if you follow the history of the sport, nobody had more influence on the sport than D. From the long rod, the shallow water technique, the reason they put raised casting decks in a bass boat, thumb bars, brush guards on a jig, just right down the line, everything that technique brought us, along with guys like Denny Brower, Hank Parker, and Gary Klein, and all these guys, Dave Glebe, all those anglers that took D's technique across the country and really, put all those guys into the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame, not just made them a lot of money.
Wow. Let's get back to some top 5 lakes. We've mentioned Havasu. We've mentioned Clear Lake. What else do you have for us?
Well, the California Delta. The California Delta, anytime I talk to my friends back east, they want to know about the Delta. They want to talk about Clear Lake. They want to talk about a couple of our spotted bass fisheries. But I'll tell you, you just always have to struggle with what's 1 and 2, with it being Clear Lake or the Delta. The Delta is in the middle of our California water wars, and, spraying weeds and, trying to move water around. And it is definitely in the crosshairs of our political battles out here, but it's still just a phenomenal fishery and a place that anybody who wants to go bass fishing wants to go to the Delta.
Do any of the Pacific Northwest or Rocky Mountain states, do they have any waters that would make your top 5?
Yeah, one of them, Idaho for sure, Coeur d'Alene. Without a doubt, Lake Coeur d'Alene is a phenomenal fishery. Once again, a trophy smallmouth fishery. But you know what? You can go back into the chain lakes. You can go into big lily pad-filled ponds with a frog or a topwater and catch a 20 to 25-pound bag of largemouth as well.
And not only that, folks, it's an absolutely gorgeous area to fish this time of year. You're fishing, like you said, in this area with lily pads, but you're surrounded by, pine forest and mountains, and it's just a wonderful place to go fishing. So in addition to the great fish you're going to catch, you're going to enjoy some great scenery, too. Last lake, what's the last one you wanted to tell us about?
Well, you know what? It's really hard not to put Lake Shasta on the list here in Northern California, just solely because it hasn't kicked out a world record spotted bass like Bullard's Bar has, and everybody, how can he leave Bullard's Bar off? It's kicked all those big spotted bass out. It's not as good as it was when it was undiscovered. Let's just say that. Shasta is the next lake we have that'll kick out a world record spotted bass. It has those caliber of fish. And then a couple of anglers showed us in the past couple of years just the amazing number of big largemouth that are eating trout and swim baits, as you mentioned earlier in that lake. So another deal where it's one of the most beautiful lakes you'll ever fish, with mountains and eagles and waterfalls and all the cool stuff. But yeah, I'd have to put Shasta on that list too.
All right. Well, Kent, love you weighing in on this topic. And folks, if you want to listen to Ultimate Bass Radio, there's a couple ways you can do it. If you live in Northern California, anywhere near Sacramento, just tune in to KHTK AM 1140 Saturday mornings from 5 to 6 a.m. Or if you live anywhere else, you can always listen to podcasts online. The website to go to is ultimatebassradio.com. That's ultimatebassradio.com with Kent Brown. Ken, thanks so much for sharing this with us today on America Outdoors Radio.
Thank you.
Going after kokanee? Then stock up with spinners, squids, and dodgers from Christensen's Lakeshore Tackle. They're your best bet for getting those landlocked salmon to bite. Buy Lakeshore Tackle products today in major sporting goods stores or online at lakeshoretackle.com.
Maybe you can relate to this. A lot of people think they're stuck with their health plan. It costs too much, or for whatever reason, they just don't like it. But great news, you are not stuck with it. There is a choice. It's called MediShare, and you could save so much. The typical savings for a family is $500 a month. Major difference maker. This is the affordable alternative to health insurance. And just to give you a little more info about MediShare, it's a Christian healthcare sharing ministry. It's worked beautifully for 26 years, has more than 400,000 members, and they've shared over $3 billion of each other's medical bills. So yes, they can help share your needs too. So you're not stuck. There's an excellent alternative, whether you're single or married, you got a family. MediShare is super flexible. You can choose an option that works for you and start saving lots of money. You can join anytime. They're great to talk to, no pressure. Call 855-SHARE-40. That's 855-SHARE-40. 855-SHARE-40.
Welcome back to America Outdoors Radio. I'm John Kruse. We've got one of my favorite guests on the line. His name is Brandon Butler. He's the host of a great podcast called Driftwood Outdoors. He also is a syndicated outdoors columnist covering Missouri and Indiana. And Brandon, I understand you just landed a new gig with Midwest Game and Fish.
Yeah, thanks, John. I've always been a fan of the Game and Fish publications, and growing up for me it was Indiana Game and Fish, and then occasionally I'd get Kentucky Game and Fish, and when I moved to Missouri I'd get that. Well, they did a consolidation, and now there's 4 regional magazines, and I really think it was a great move for the brand. It brings a lot more regional specific content. They were having a hard time being very state specific,
Sure.
And then they put together a real all-star lineup of people there, too. Adam Helgetsetter's there, John Toronto, Josh Ward. So a number of people I've known for a while, and I was very pleased to be thought of for a column that is tentatively being called the Hot List, that's going to highlight 7 to 8 things to do in that region each month. And they want more of a narrative, not just a real cookie-cutter how-to, where-to, but a why should I go do this? And That's exactly what I like to communicate. So pretty excited to pick up that column.
Well, congratulations. I can't wait to read your first column in an upcoming edition of Midwest Game and Fish. Now, I was on your Facebook page, and you look like you've been having entirely too good of a time during this COVID-19 pandemic. You were out during a cast and blast spring camp. Tell our listeners about this.
Well, man, I feel so sorry for so many people going through this isolation. But when you set your life up for this and it comes to fruition, then nothing really looks like it changes. So I've built a property in the middle of nowhere because I like getting away from people and just having a few close family members or friends there. And that's been my life all along. So now it's just kind of what other people have been forced into, and maybe it unfortunately looks like I'm enjoying it, but really I'm just enjoying life at a cabin where the nearest neighbor is basically a half a mile away. So it's not been that bad for me. Again, I say that sympathetically, knowing it's been horrible for others, but I've got a one-man office that I work from, so I still get up in the morning and put my nice collared shirt on and go to my office, and when I recreate, I'm recreating in places where there are no people. But that's by design. I've always wanted it to be that way. And, again, so I apologize to anybody that thinks, like, there's a guy enjoying this too much. But, yeah, it was great. I mean, it was turkey camp, smallmouth camp, trout camp, cooking camp. So I had 3 buddies there. We kind of proceeded as planned, and we were outside in the woods most of the time and on the river. And my buddy Shags, my podcast partner, caught a 24-inch brown trout, a wild released, a brown trout that was raised in the river, not a released fish. And so that was like an 8-pound brown from a wild and scenic river in the Ozarks. That's a fish of a lifetime for anybody. And
oh, yeah.
One guy got a turkey. The Ozark Mountain birds, man. People tell you, like, there's hard turkeys to kill everywhere. You talk to any of the turkey hunting legends, and they'll tell you those Ozark birds are just a different breed. They have some kind of survivability that lacks in their cousins in other places of the country.
Well, I'll tell you what, Brandon, a lot of folks have said that their dogs have been the biggest beneficiaries of this COVID-19 pandemic because we're always taking them out for walks, we're taking them for drives, and they're thinking it's the best time of their lives because their masters are home too with all these lockdown orders we have. But you may have beaten the dog's life, so to speak, with what you've been doing lately. So good for you. Folks, again, we're talking to Brandon Butler. You're listening to America Outdoors Radio. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on this month in Missouri and Indiana, especially on the fishing front. Missouri actually made it free to go fishing for a while, was really encouraging people to go fishing during this pandemic.
Looking at state by state, all the different regulation changes that came out of this for fishing and hunting, couldn't be any more proud of Missouri. They're like, it was very common sense. We want people to socially distance, and let's encourage them into the outdoors. And not only will it be good for them in this moment, but maybe it'll breed some kind of desire to become a fisherman or a hunter down the road. So Missouri's kept our state open, and we've seen unfortunate situations arise in other states, like in Michigan, where they banned the use of an outboard motor. I mean, I just don't see how that has any application at all to what was trying to be achieved by keeping people apart, And so, real proud of Missouri for doing that, for waiving the fishing licenses. Truthfully, I haven't kept up with what Indiana did. I know people are fishing over there. I know they didn't shut anything down. I don't know if they offered any kind of reprieve on cost. But, yeah, both states definitely encouraging people to get outdoors and not be cooped up in a apartment or something like that, because we've already seen, like, 35% increase in antidepressants, and instead of getting on a pharmaceutical, maybe you could just go fishing.
I think that is definitely a great cure-all. And even in my home state of Washington, the only state to ban recreational fishing, our governor finally saw the light after a series of protests the last 2 weeks by anglers, and we are opening up fishing again too. So I can't wait to get out there myself. When it comes to fishing in May in Missouri, what are the hot spots? I'm guessing places like Table Rock and Bull Shoals are really hot this month.
Fishing hotspots in Missouri in May. Let's see. Anything south of Iowa, anything north of Arkansas, east of Kansas, or west of Illinois. So, no, I mean, May for fishing is like October for hunting. What do you choose? Because the crappie are on fire right now. I had my 13-year-old out yesterday, and we were actually catching crappie on fly rods from a lake in our subdivision. The trout are good all year, but when you're floating the current river and the dogwoods are blooming and the redbuds are blooming and you've got the river to yourself because there's no canoers out yet, I mean, it's as good as it gets. I caught a 17-inch smallmouth from a small creek last week. The water was up enough in this small creek to let us float it. It can get tough, a lot of dragging in the summer, but we got down it unimpaired, and I caught 10 smallmouth in a 3-mile stretch out of a kayak. So white bass are running, largemouth are starting to spawn. Our paddlefish snagging season is taking place right now. I do that occasionally. I enjoy the camaraderie and stuff. I don't really like the paddlefish meat. I'm sure somebody right now is calling me crazy, but you get so much of it, and I'd just rather fill my freezer up with crappie.
Well, you're making me want to relocate to the Show Me State and take up residence there with you. I'll tell you what. One more thing before we go. I want to talk about your podcast, Driftwood Outdoors. You had a great guest on last week, and the subject was turkey hunting.
Oh, Alex Rutledge?
Absolutely.
Yeah, Alex is a legend to me. Like when Outdoor Video really first kind of came out, they assembled this all-star cast at Hunter Specialties. And I mean, literally like the dream team of turkey hunting. And Philip Vanderpool, Eddie Salter, Rick White, Walter Parrott, Matt Moret, and then, of course, Alex Rutledge. And Alex is just an incredible dude that lives down in Shannon County, Missouri, where I have my cabin and property. And he talks about it all the time. He was like this little hillbilly kid, like one of 10 when they came to him. And he couldn't believe, like, the world opened up to him the way it did. And he's been able to make a career out of being in the outdoor industry as an instructor and TV show host and seminar provider, and just a real salt-of-the-earth human being. But he really, really knows turkey hunting, too. Oh, and he's like a state champion turkey caller, competed in the world, I believe, and, you know, just a really profound turkey hunter, turkey caller, and he's a good communicator. So he does a really good job of educating people on how to call, which is a hard thing to do. You know, you want to tell them, like, oh yeah, put this diaphragm call in your mouth, press it up against the roof of your mouth with your tongue and blow.
Right.
It's kind of like teaching somebody to whistle. It's just hard to do. And he does a good job of breaking it down. I think that is a good episode. I appreciate you saying that. We're having a lot of fun with the podcast. You know, I've heard from some people that, well, it's pretty Missouri specific. Well, we live in Missouri and we have full-time jobs, and we don't do any of our interviews over the phone or over Skype or Zoom yet. We like doing them in person. We're trying to branch out, and hopefully the future will allow us more opportunities at some shows to pick up more national people. But right now, everything that we're talking about really in Missouri and the surrounding area kind of applies to the country. And I think it's got a good conservation ethic and a lot of interesting people talking hunting and fishing.
For all of our listeners in Springfield and Waynesville, you might want to check out this podcast. You'll find it at driftwoodoutdoors.com. And for that matter, everybody else might want to check it out too. We have got to go, but folks, the website again is driftwoodoutdoors.com. Brandon, thanks so much for taking the time today on America Outdoors Radio.
Man, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Kokanee indeed. That's what my family says every time they catch a delicious kokanee salmon, and we're reeling them in today. We're trolling spinners, crop dusters, or my personal favorite mini squids behind dodgers made by Christensen's Lakeshore Tackle. Tested at Flaming Gorge Reservoir, Lakeshore Tackle will catch kokanee wherever you're fishing. Look for Lakeshore Tackle at Sportsman's Warehouse, Cabela's, and Shields, or online at lakeshoretackle.com. Kokanee indeed at lakeshoretackle.com.
Hunting and fishing are exercises in hope. Before you head into the woods, you hope to tag out on a deer you'll have to field dress. Before you make that first cast, you hope for a big fish to clean and fillet. When your hopes are realized, you'll need a sharp knife. Whether you sharpen that blade on a power sharpener in the shop or a manual sharpener in the field, WorkSharp has the tool for you. Look for WorkSharp products in sporting goods stores near you or online at worksharptools.com.
The Dalles in Oregon is your base camp for fishing fun. Reel in big salmon, tangle with steelhead, bass, and walleye, or wrestle a monster sturgeon to the boat. After the day is done, you'll find a variety of lodging options around town. Need to resupply? We've got you covered with sporting goods stores plus great dining, breweries, wineries, and can't-miss attractions like the Gorge Discovery Center. Plan your fishing getaway today at explorethedalles.com. That's explorethedalles.com.
Backcountry Hunters and Anglers is the voice for your public lands, waters, and wildlife. From the Canadian Yukon to the Florida Everglades, we're stepping up to conserve North America's public lands, defend our hunting and fishing traditions, and expand public access to the outdoors. Our outdoor heritage depends on sportsmen and women like you speaking up for the natural resources that sustain our way of life. Find out how you can get involved at backcountryhunters.org and become a BHA member today.
Immerse yourself in a complete Alaska wilderness experience through Sportsman's Cove Lodge. Up to 6 of you will spend a week in a beautiful waterfront log home in a secluded cove. Every day is a new adventure. Go on a guided fishing trip or haul in a bounty of shrimp and crab. Visit a Native American village where totem poles are carved. Go on a whale or bear watching trip and return back to your very own place at the end of the day. Find out more about the Alaska Wilderness Experience at alaskasbestlodge.com. That's alaskasbestlodge.com.
Looking to reel in the marketing opportunity of a lifetime? Then set the hook, because we've got it right here. America Outdoors Radio has sponsorships available, and we offer an affordable platform to reach thousands of listeners interested in fishing, hunting, and the outdoors. Find out more by contacting host John Kruse through his website at AmericanOutdoorsRadio.com. That's AmericanOutdoorsRadio.com. But hurry, if you wait too long, this big opportunity might just get away. That's AmericanOutdoorsRadio.com.
Next up on America Outdoors Radio, we get to talk a little bit about conservation and a big win that's taking place in our United States. The person we're talking to is Jennifer Doherty. She is the Director of Lands for the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Well, I'm glad to have you here. I'm glad to share this news that a 10-mile stretch of elk and wildlife habitat along the border of South Dakota and Wyoming called the Grand Canyon of the Black Hills is going to be permanently protected thanks to work done by your organization and several other partner organizations. Now, before we go into details about what's happened here, why don't you tell me and a bunch of our listeners more about the Grand Canyon of the Black Hills? I think outside of our listeners in Sundance, Wyoming, most of us are not very familiar with this area.
Right, absolutely. Would love to talk about it. It's a really fantastic area of the country and sort of a pocket within Wyoming that is unique of itself and around its surrounding lands. So we're zeroing in on an area that's really unique in Wyoming and the Grand Canyon of Wyoming in the extreme eastern side, right along the border of South Dakota. It's just a fantastic area. It's vital winter range for elk. There's white-tailed deer, mule deer, bighorn sheep, wild turkey. It's really just kind of a pocket of paradise within Wyoming. And the scenic values of this landscape are incredible. If you haven't been through there, I definitely recommend it. You're looking at limestone cliffs. There's caves and ledges. It's just a really, really unique area. It takes you kind of into the Black Hills National Forest system of the Forest Service lands in Wyoming. So it's a really rare piece of landscape in Wyoming, and we're excited to talk about it today.
Oh, it sounds absolutely gorgeous. I'm going to put on my list of places to visit. Now that we've got the lay of the land, why don't you tell us what happened here in terms of how this land was managed before and what things are going to look like now and why this is such a big win for conservation?
Absolutely. Well, as you mentioned, it's a fairly large piece of property, so 4,350 acres. And that is a property that was all privately held by a private landowner. And I have to give a big shout out to him. Our private landowners around the country do amazing work for wildlife habitat, this landowner included, and really took great care of this property. It was in private ownership, so 4,350 acres of private ownership in this unique landscape. The Elk Foundation worked alongside the state of Wyoming, Fish and Game, as well as State Lands Office, the Forest Service, numerous other partners to bring this property into public ownership, into the State Lands Office ownership. So it was really a huge effort by a lot of different groups, and the Elk Foundation sort of took the reins on fundraising and garnering support from national funders like the Forest Legacy Program. The Forest Legacy Program is a subset of land and water conservation funds that a lot of us hear about that fund. It's a state section of that funding. And, with that $6 million in funding just from that source alone, we were able to pull together the acquisition of this property and get it into state lands ownership. So we're really excited to have it in that ownership. We're excited to bring, again, this unique private parcel into the surrounding landscape that has been managed publicly by the Black Hills National Forest and other state sections.
Here's a question. The state agency that now has responsibility for managing these lands, are they dedicated to making this open for public access, or are these state lands that could be sold off to fund other things like you see with some state trust lands around the nation?
Right. That's a very real risk around the nation, for sure. This was a really unique partnership. And again, with the Forest Legacy funding that I mentioned, that land will be managed under a Sustainable Forest Management Plan. So they'll adhere to those national program guidelines. So the state of Wyoming and State Lands Office within Wyoming will be managing to those national guidelines. That'll be a benefit to the economic viability of Wyoming as well as to the public access. So the public will be able to just enjoy this property and explore it, hunt, recreate, and just really soak it all in. So it's an exciting program and it's a sustainable one.
Again, 10-mile stretch of habitat along the Wyoming-South Dakota border, now open for you to recreate in, folks. This is a 4,300-acre property. There's also improved access to more than 8,000 other acres of adjacent public land, so this is fantastic. We've got about a minute left. Can you briefly mention one or two other habitat wins for the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation in other parts of the country?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. Well, we are working, from east to west, so it's exciting. We have some wins recently in Michigan and Wisconsin, so I want to toss that out there. The Wisconsin elk herd is, about 400 elk right now. I think even more so than that. They've grown quite significantly, and they have two different elk herds within the state. We've recently done 2 land acquisitions in Wisconsin, acquired 2 pieces of property in that southwestern herd, the Starlight property and the Morrison Creek property. Together, those add up to over 600 acres of land, and they'll be managed by the Jackson County Forestry and Parks organization or agency and available to the public. So again, just really reaching out, trying to get these properties in public ownership so they can be managed, in a healthy manner for habitat for the wildlife, but also so all of us can get out, hunt, fish, recreate, and enjoy these landscapes.
All right, we have got to go, but folks, the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, if you're not part of this organization yet, you really might want to consider joining. They're 235,000 members strong. They have conserved nearly 8 million acres for elk and other wildlife. If you want to find out more, and if you want to join, easy website to go to, rmef.org. That's rmef.org for the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, doing great work like you just heard about from Jennifer. Jennifer, thanks for sharing this with us today on America Outdoors Radio.
Appreciate it. Appreciate all you do. Thank you.
By the way, this portion of the show is brought to you by our friends at WorkSharp. They are the makers of those great knife and tool sharpeners out of Ashland, Oregon. And if you haven't checked out their products yet, you really should. You can find them at sporting goods stores and hardware stores all over the country, and you can find them 24/7 online at worksharptools.com. And we've got a deal for you if you want to buy them online. Just go to worksharptools.com. Go ahead and find what you need in terms of an electric or manual knife and tool sharpener. Place your order, and when you do, use the coupon code RADIO, because as soon as you enter that in, you will get 30% off your entire order plus free shipping. Now that is a deal you don't want to miss out on. The website again, worksharptools.com, and the coupon code is RADIO. One other thing we want to remind you about is the giveaway we are doing on our America Outdoors Radio Facebook page. Simply go to that Facebook page at America Outdoors Radio, like and follow the page. That's step number 1. Then look for the post where we are giving away a whole bunch of items from Christensen's Lakeshore Tackle that will come in very handy if you're trolling for trout or kokanee in any water here in America. They are going to catch some fish for you. And if you want a chance to win this package from Christensen's Lakeshore Tackle, all you have to do is let us know what city and state you're from. If you want a bonus entry, let us know what station you listen to our show on to. And after our last broadcast next week, we'll announce one lucky winner. By the way, if you haven't checked out the products from Christensen's Lakeshore Tackle yet, you can do so at your local Sportsman's Warehouse stores. They're also in select Shield stores, Cabela's, and Bass Pro Shops, and they really are a great tackle company when it comes to manufacturing lures out of the state of Utah that'll help you catch kokanee and trout anywhere you live and where these fish live too. The website to go to, lakeshoretackle.com. That's lakeshoretackle.com for Christensen's Lakeshore Tackle. While you're on the web, be sure to check out our website at AmericaOutdoorsRadio.com. You'll find links to our sponsors who bring you this show every week, and we hope you'll support them like they're supporting us so that we can share the outdoors with you on a regular basis. You can also check out our podcast from that website too. You'll find America Outdoors Radio as a podcast uploaded a few days after we originally broadcast it on not only our website, but on platforms like TuneIn and Stitcher and Podbean in case you want to hear us on the go. It is time to go, and I do hope you have a blessed day, and I do hope as we slowly emerge from the first round of this COVID-19 pandemic, you have your health and your sanity with you. If you are needing a boost in either one, I'd really recommend you get outside during the springtime weather. After all, it is your country and you're outdoors, so get out there and enjoy it.
Backcountry Hunters and Anglers is the voice for your public lands, waters, and wildlife. From the Canadian Yukon to the Florida Everglades, we're stepping up to conserve North America's public lands, defend our hunting and fishing traditions, and expand access to the outdoors. Find out how you can get involved at backcountryhunters.org.